You're a horrible daughter. My mom's voice thundered through the phone, cutting through the quiet of my apartment. I froze, holding my phone tighter. What are you talking about? You know exactly what I'm talking about, she snapped. After all I've done for you, you couldn't even upgrade me to first class for this trip? What kind of child does that to their mother? I took a deep breath, gripping the counter to steady myself. Mom, I paid for your entire trip, I said evenly, trying to keep my voice steady. Flights, the hotel, the tours, everything. Do you even realize how much time and effort went into planning this? She scoffed. And yet you couldn't do this one small thing to make it special? Honestly, Kristen, I don't know what's wrong with you. Your sister would have done it without a second thought. My name is Kristen, and for as long as I can remember, my mom has made me feel like I'm never enough. Growing up, I was the responsible one, the straight A student, the one who landed a stable career in marketing and saved diligently for my future. My sister, Danielle, was the golden child, warm, charming, and effortlessly adored. This trip to Europe wasn't just a vacation for my mom. It was supposed to be my way of saying, "Look, Mom, I care about you." I thought it might bridge the gap between us, prove to her that I wasn't the selfish, ungrateful person she often implied I was. It had taken years of saving every spare penny, skipping vacations, and living frugally. Flights, accommodations in upscale hotels, guided tours, and even tickets to cultural performances she'd always dreamed of attending. It was all planned meticulously. But none of that mattered now. All she could focus on was the fact that her seat wasn't in first class. Mom, I said carefully, forcing calm into my voice, I thought you'd be happy. It's a beautiful itinerary. You'll have an amazing time. Nodding, Coach, I won't, she spat back. Her words stung, but I refused to let her see it. Well, I hope you enjoy the trip anyway, I said, ending the call before I could say something I'd regret. Later that day, as I pulled up to the airport to drop her off, her parting words cut deep. Maybe if you ever grow up, you'll figure out how to treat people properly, she said, striding into the terminal without so much as a glance back. Driving home, her words echoed in my mind, sharp and cutting. But by the time I parked, something shifted inside me. If she thought I was a horrible daughter, maybe it was time for her to understand just how wrong she was. When I walked back into my apartment, her words kept replaying in my mind. Maybe if you ever grow up. I dropped my bag by the door and sank onto the couch, staring blankly at the wall. A lump formed in my throat, but I forced myself to swallow it down. I wasn't going to cry, not over this. I'd worked so hard to make this trip perfect. I had spent years skipping vacations, declining nights out with friends, and picking up extra work just to save enough. I wanted to give her something special, a way to experience the world beyond her small, predictable routine. I thought it might make her happy, maybe even proud of me. Instead, she had called me selfish, embarrassed me, and stormed into the airport without a word of thanks. This wasn't new. For as long as I could remember, my mom had a way of turning everything into a critique of my shortcomings. When I aced a test, she'd ask why it wasn't perfect. If I got a promotion, she'd find a way to say Danielle could have done it faster. And Danielle. Of course, Danielle was always the one who could do no wrong. She didn't have a steady job. She didn't contribute financially. But somehow, she was the golden child, the one who could make time to be around, while I was the one stuck playing catch-up. But this trip? This was supposed to be different. It was supposed to be the gesture that said, "Look, Mom, I care. Look how much I've sacrificed for you." Instead, it had become another way for her to belittle me. I opened my laptop, pulling up the confirmation email for her flights. 2 economy class tickets, round trip. Carefully chosen to be as comfortable as possible without breaking the bank. The thought of canceling the whole trip crossed my mind for a moment, but I couldn't. The hotel and tours were non-refundable, and even though she didn't appreciate it, I had put too much effort into planning to let it all go to waste. But then my eyes landed on the return flight. Next to it was a small blue button. Manage booking. Canceling just the return flight wouldn't cost me a dime. It wouldn't affect her vacation at all. She'd still have her dream trip. But when it came time to come home, she'd be on her own. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the mouse. Was this too much? Was it cruel? Her voice echoed in my mind again. You're selfish. Embarrassing. The hesitation disappeared. With a single click, the screen refreshed and a confirmation email landed in my inbox. The return flight was officially canceled. For the first time in years, I felt a flicker of control. The next few days passed in a blur, but not without constant reminders of the trip I had so painstakingly planned. My mom didn't call me after she landed. I wasn't surprised. Instead, she took to social media, flooding her account with posts about her incredible European adventure. The first post showed her standing outside the airport in Paris, a wide smile plastered across her face. Living the dream, tagging everyone to see. I rolled my eyes, setting my phone down on the counter. She continued to post throughout the trip, pictures of the elegant hotel lobby, the picturesque views of Parisian streets, the gourmet meals she'd clearly made a show of photographing before eating. Her captions oozed gratitude, but I knew better. She didn't tag me again after that first post, but the messages were clear. Each one was dripping with an air of smugness. Part of me wanted to confront her, to call her out for the audacity of publicly crediting me while privately calling me selfish and embarrassing. But I stayed quiet, letting her have her moment. Because I knew her real moment was coming. On the fourth day, she posted a video from a luxury dinner cruise. Truly the trip of a lifetime, she said to the camera, raising a glass of champagne. By this point, I wasn't checking her updates out of curiosity but anticipation. Every photo and post felt like another piece of the puzzle falling into place. She had no idea what was waiting for her. I couldn't help but wonder what she'd think when she realized her return flight was gone. Would she assume it was a mistake? Would she lash out at the airline staff or try to guilt-trip me the moment she found out? Either way, it didn't matter. She'd have to deal with it herself. The night before her scheduled return, I got a text from my sister, Danielle. Mom's been texting me nonstop about how amazing the trip is, she wrote. She said you helped her with it. I stared at the message, debating whether to respond. Danielle had no idea about the canceled flight, or the years of frustration and hurt that had led to it. To her, everything looked perfect. Glad she's enjoying herself, I finally typed back. It wasn't a lie. I was glad she was enjoying the trip, but what I was really looking forward to was the reckoning waiting for her at the airport. For once, she was going to feel the weight of her entitlement. And maybe, just maybe, she'd realize how much her words and actions had cost her. The day of her return flight finally arrived. I had been carrying an odd mix of nerves and anticipation all morning, knowing this was the moment everything would unravel. Around noon, my phone buzzed. Her name lit up the screen and I took a deep breath before answering. Hi, Mom. Kristen, she hissed, her voice sharp and panicked. Why is my flight canceled? I almost smiled at how quickly she got to the point. What do you mean? I asked, feigning confusion. You know exactly what I mean, she snapped. I just tried to check in and the airline said my ticket has been canceled. What's going on? Oh, that, I said, keeping my tone casual. Yeah, I canceled it. Her sharp intake of breath was almost satisfying. You canceled it? Why would you do that? Because, Mom, I began, keeping my voice calm and measured. I wanted you to understand what it feels like to be left hanging. After all, you were pretty clear about how you feel about me as a daughter. What are you talking about? She demanded, though her voice had softened slightly. You called me a horrible daughter, I reminded her. After everything I did for you, after I spent years saving for this trip and planning every detail to make it special for you, and instead of saying thank you, you insulted me. There was a long pause on her end. Then she sighed, exasperated. Kristen, you're overreacting. You know I didn't mean it like that. You didn't mean it? I repeated, my voice firmer now. You said it. And you've said things like that my entire life. I've always bent over backward to make you happy, and all you ever do is criticize me. So no, Mom, I'm not overreacting. I'm done. Done? She echoed, her voice rising again. What does that even mean? You're just going to leave me stranded here? You're not stranded, I said matter-of-factly. You have options. You can book another flight. Or maybe Danielle can help you. Either way, this isn't my problem anymore. Her tone shifted quickly from anger to desperation. Kristen, please, I don't have the money for another ticket. I can't believe you do this to me. I'm your mother. I let her words hang in the air for a moment before responding. Figure it out, Mom. You've always told me to grow up and take responsibility for myself. Now it's your turn. Before she could say anything else, I ended the call and set the phone down. My heart was pounding, but there was a quiet satisfaction brewing underneath the nerves. I wasn't bending to her will anymore. The phone calls and messages started pouring in not long after our conversation ended. Kristen, you can't just leave me here like this, one voicemail screamed. Do you know how humiliating this is? I'm at the airport trying to explain to the staff why my flight doesn't exist, and they're looking at me like I'm crazy. Another one whined. The texts weren't much better. How could you do this to me? What would people think if they knew you abandoned your own mother in Europe? I stared at my phone, unmoved. Each message felt like a desperate attempt to regain control, but they didn't carry the same weight they once did. By the afternoon, her tone shifted. The calls were less frequent, and the texts took on a pleading edge. Kristen, I'm sorry for what I said. I didn't mean it. Please, just help me get home. Do you want me to beg? Fine, I'm begging. I can't afford a new ticket and I don't know what to do. I read the messages carefully, trying to determine if she was being sincere or just manipulating me again. It was hard to tell. After years of emotional tug-of-war, I had learned not to take her words at face value. Still, a small part of me felt guilty. This was my mom, after all. She had given me life, raised me, and supported me in her own flawed way. Did she deserve this? But then I remembered her parting words at the airport. Maybe if you ever grow up, you'll figure out how to treat people properly. The guilt faded. By evening, the desperation in her messages reached its peak. Kristen, I'm sleeping on a bench at the airport. I have no way to get home and I can't stay here. Please, I'm begging you. For a brief moment, I almost picked up the phone, but then I reminded myself why I had done this. This wasn't just about the trip or the canceled flight. It was about the years of dismissal, the constant criticism, the way she made me feel small no matter how much I gave. If I let her off the hook now, nothing would change. Instead, I texted Danielle. Mom's having trouble getting home. If you want to help her, feel free. I'm done. Danielle called me immediately, sounding half annoyed, half concerned. Kristen, what's going on? Mom says you canceled her ticket? I did, I replied calmly. She called me a horrible daughter and treated me like garbage after I paid for this whole trip. I'm done bending over backward for her, Danielle. She can figure this out herself. Danielle sighed. I get it, but don't you think this is a bit much? No, I said firmly. This is exactly enough. The next morning, the texts stopped, and my phone was unusually quiet. For a moment, I wondered if she had managed to figure something out. Maybe Danielle had swooped in to save the day, or maybe my mom had found another way home. Either way, I wasn't going to be the one to check in on her. But then, just before lunch, my phone buzzed again. Kristen, she wrote, I don't know what else to say. I know I've hurt you, and I know I've been unfair. I just want to come home. Please. It was the most genuine message I had received from her in years. I sat there staring at the screen, torn between relief and skepticism. Was this an actual apology? Or was it just another tactic to manipulate me? After all, she had said similar things before, only to fall back into old habits once the situation passed. But then I thought about the years of frustration I had carried, the endless attempts to prove myself to someone who never seemed to care. This wasn't just about the canceled ticket. It was about showing her that I wasn't going to let her walk all over me anymore. I took a deep breath and typed out my reply. Mom, I'll book you a flight home, but this is the last time I'm doing something like this for you. If you can't start treating me with respect, don't expect me to keep bending over backward for you. Her response came quickly. Thank you, I'll do better, I promise. I wasn't sure if I believed her, but I booked the ticket anyway. It wasn't about trusting her, it was about giving myself closure. I wasn't doing this for her anymore. I was doing it for me, to end this chapter on my terms. When I sent her the flight details, her gratitude was immediate. Thank you so much, Kristen. I mean it this time. I couldn't help but feel a twinge of satisfaction. For once, I had stood my ground and set the boundaries I should have set years ago. As her return flight approached, I felt a strange sense of calm. No matter what happened next, I knew I had finally taken control of my relationship with her. 2 days later, I waited at the airport to pick her up. I could have let her take a cab home, but something in me wanted to see this through. Maybe I was looking for some kind of closure, or maybe I just wanted to see her reaction face to face. When I spotted her walking toward the arrivals gate, she looked different. Her usual confident stride was replaced with something slower, more hesitant. She clutched her carry-on bag tightly, her expression a mix of exhaustion and... was that humility? Hi, Mom, I said as she approached. Hi, she replied softly, glancing at me like she wasn't sure how to start. The drive home was quiet at first. I could feel the tension in the air, but I wasn't about to be the one to break the silence. Finally, as we pulled onto the highway, she spoke. Kristen, I owe you an apology. I glanced at her, surprised by her tone. It wasn't the begrudging half-apology I had expected. It sounded genuine. For what? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. For the way I treated you, she admitted. You didn't deserve that. You've always worked so hard to take care of me, and I never appreciated it the way I should have. I'm sorry. Her words caught me off guard. I had dreamed of hearing something like this for years, but now that it was happening, I wasn't sure how to feel. Thank you, I said after a pause. I appreciate you saying that. I mean it, she continued. This trip made me realize how much you've done for me over the years. When I was stuck at that airport, I started thinking about all the times you've bailed me out, even when I didn't deserve it. And then I realized you were right to cancel that ticket. I needed to see what it was like to fend for myself. I wasn't sure what to say. Part of me wanted to believe her, but another part of me worried this was just a temporary change, a momentary blip before she returned to her old ways. I'm glad you see that now, I said finally. She nodded, looking out the window. I know I can't undo the past, but I want to try to be better, for you. When we got to her house, she hesitated before getting out of the car. Kristen, thank you for everything. For the trip, for the flight home, and for putting up with me all these years. I know I haven't made it easy. I nodded. You're welcome, Mom. But from now on, things have to be different. I'm not going to keep letting you treat me the way you have in the past. If you want to be in my life, it has to be on equal terms. She gave me a small smile. Fair enough. As I drove away, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I felt like I had taken control of my relationship with her, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. Maybe she would change, and maybe she wouldn't. But either way, I knew I had finally set the boundaries I needed to protect myself. And for now, that was enough. The days after her return felt oddly quiet. For years, my relationship with my mom had been a constant source of stress, a series of battles where I always ended up feeling defeated. But now, there was a sense of finality, like I had finally closed a door I should have shut long ago. Still, I couldn't shake the mix of emotions swirling inside me. On one hand, I felt relief, even pride, for standing up for myself. On the other hand, I wasn't entirely sure what came next. Would my mom really change? Or would this just be another cycle, where she made temporary promises only to slip back into old habits? She called me a week later. Hi, Kristen, she said hesitantly, her voice unusually soft. How are you? I'm fine, I replied, unsure of where this was going. I just wanted to check in, she said. I've been thinking a lot about our conversation, about what you said in the car. I didn't say anything, letting her fill the silence. I know I've taken you for granted, she continued, and I know it's going to take time to fix things between us. But I want you to know that I'm serious about trying. Her words sounded genuine, but I had learned to temper my expectations. I hope so, Mom, I said, because I meant what I said. I'm not going to keep bending over backward for someone who doesn't appreciate me. I understand, she said quietly. The next few months were a strange adjustment. My mom didn't call as often, and when she did, our conversations were more measured, even pleasant. There were no more passive-aggressive comments or guilt-laden requests. It wasn't perfect. There were moments when I caught glimpses of her old behavior, a snide remark here, a pointed comment there. But each time I held my ground, calmly reminding her of the boundaries I had set. To my surprise, she started catching herself. Sorry, she'd say, almost embarrassed. I didn't mean that. It was a small change, but it felt significant. Meanwhile, I began to focus more on myself. For years, so much of my energy had gone into trying to win her approval, to prove that I was enough. But now I realized I didn't need her validation. I started taking better care of myself, both physically and emotionally. I reconnected with friends I had neglected, pursued hobbies I'd always put off, and even started planning a vacation for myself. A real vacation, not one that revolved around pleasing someone else. I also spent more time with my sister, Danielle. She had always been close to my mom, but now she seemed to understand my side of things better. I think you did the right thing, she told me one evening over dinner. Mom needed that wake-up call, and honestly, I think it's made her a better person. The next time my mom called, it wasn't to ask for anything. I just wanted to say thank you, she said, for everything you've done for me. I know I haven't said it enough. Her words caught me off guard, but they felt different this time, less performative, more heartfelt. You're welcome, Mom, I said, smiling. Our conversation ended without tension or resentment. It wasn't a perfect relationship, and I knew it never would be, but it was a start. I felt like we were moving forward, not because I had bent to her will, but because I had finally learned to stand up for myself. The weeks after my mom's return marked a turning point, not just in our relationship, but in how I saw myself. For so long, I had tied my worth to her approval, bending over backward to please her, hoping that one day she'd see how much I cared. But now I realized something important. I didn't need her validation to feel whole. Setting boundaries wasn't just about protecting myself from her, it was about reclaiming my sense of self-worth. Our relationship wasn't perfect, but it was different. My mom was trying, in her own way. The sharp edges of her personality were still there, but they didn't cut as deep. She thought twice before making a comment, catching herself more often than not. And I was stronger. When she made a snide remark about my new haircut during one of our weekly calls, I didn't let it slide. I like it, I told her calmly, and that's what matters. She paused, then let out a small laugh. I guess it does. It wasn't much, but it was progress. More importantly, I stopped letting her opinions define me. I spent more time focusing on my own happiness, reconnecting with old friends, picking up hobbies I'd abandoned, and setting new goals for myself. I felt like I was living my life for me, not for her approval. And in that newfound independence, I found a piece I hadn't realized I was missing. It wasn't about whether or not she changed. It was about the fact that I finally had. A month later, I sat on my balcony with a cup of tea, watching the sun dip below the horizon. Life felt calmer now, less fraught with tension and constant second-guessing. My mom still called me every week, but the tone of our conversations had shifted. She seemed less demanding, more thoughtful. I noticed little changes. She asked about my work, my friends, even my plans for the weekend. For once, it didn't feel like she was just waiting for her turn to talk. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress.
Yep.
One evening, she surprised me with something I never thought I'd hear. You know, Kristen, she said softly, I've been thinking a lot about everything you've done for me. That trip, the way you handled everything. I realize now how much I've taken you for granted over the years. Her words hung in the air, heavy with sincerity. I want you to know I'm trying, she continued. I know I've hurt you, and I can't undo that, but I want us to have a better relationship if you're willing to give me the chance. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I let the weight of her words settle, wondering if this time they might really mean something. Thanks, Mom, I said finally. I appreciate that. It wasn't the grand apology I'd once dreamed of, but it didn't need to be. I wasn't looking for perfection anymore. I was looking for effort. As I hung up the phone, I realized that while she might never change completely, I had. And that was enough. I didn't need her approval to feel worthy anymore. I had found it in myself.